Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. LlamaIndex, Context-Augmented LLM Applications, Episode 1 of 14. Pre-trained models are brilliant, but they know absolutely nothing about the private documents you created this morning. You ask an LLM to summarize your brand new Q3 financial slide deck, and it either guesses blindly or tells you it cannot help. The context augmentation imperative is how you fix this. Large language models possess incredible reasoning capabilities, but their knowledge is frozen in time and limited to public data. They do not have access to your internal wikis, your customer support tickets, or your private financial reports. LlamaIndex exists to bridge this exact gap. It serves as the connective tissue between foundational models and your private, localized data. When you ask a model to summarize that Q3 slide deck, you cannot just send the question. You need a system that finds the relevant slides, extracts the text, and feeds that specific information to the model along with your prompt. This process is context augmentation. You are giving the model the exact context it needs to apply its reasoning skills to your private data. LlamaIndex provides the infrastructure to ingest, organize, and retrieve your data so that context augmentation happens reliably. Fetching text and answering a single question is only the baseline. Modern applications require more autonomy. This brings us to agentic applications. An agentic application does not just follow a straight line from a question to a database to an answer. It makes decisions along the way to handle complex user intents. The first piece of this is routing. When a user asks a question, the system needs to decide which data source or tool is appropriate. If the user asks for a high-level corporate summary, the router directs the query to the Q3 slide deck index. If the user asks for the exact numerical breakdown of regional sales, the router might send the query to a structured SQL database instead. Routing ensures the model uses the right tool for the job based on the input. The second piece is prompt chaining. Complex tasks often fail when you ask a model to handle them in a single massive prompt. Prompt chaining breaks a complex objective into smaller sequential tasks. The system might run one prompt to extract revenue figures from the slide deck, pass those figures to a second prompt that compares them to historical data, and send that output to a third prompt that drafts an executive summary. The output of one step becomes the exact context for the next step. This is where it gets interesting. Even with the right data and a structured chain, models make mistakes. This introduces reflection. Reflection is an automated quality control step. Before delivering the final summary of the Q3 deck to the user, the agentic application uses a separate prompt to evaluate its own draft. It checks if the generated text is fully supported by the retrieved slides. If the reflection step spots a hallucination or an omitted key metric, it rejects the draft and triggers a correction. The true power of context-augmented applications is not just giving an LLM a document to read, but giving it a structured, self-correcting workflow to reason securely over your private data. If you want to help keep the show going, you can search for devstories.eu on Patreon and support us there. That is all for this one. Thanks for listening and keep building.